They told me I was chasing clouds. Not once, not twice, but the same line stitched into different clothes every time I spoke about my dream. My family had the words ready. Practical, concrete, earned. You don't eat dreams, they said. You eat working hours, late nights, a paycheck that can cover rent and groceries and the medical plan that actually works. My dream was a strange, glittering thing in the corner of the room, the glow of a computer screen, the hum of a keyboard, the tiny victories of a world I could sculpt with code and color and stubborn hope. I was the kid who never quite fit the map they drew for me. My father was a mechanic who could fix a car with a prayer and a wrench. My mother a nurse who could find a heartbeat in a crowded hallway, but never a place for my peculiar heart. My siblings pursued real things, the kinds of work you could pin a degree on and that society would nod at with approval. Their laughter came easy, like a warm coat in winter. Mine came in the sting of a comment that landed with the weight of a brick. You'll fail. This is a hobby, not a career. The dream itself began in a shed of light and noise, the late-night glow of a monitor, the clack of keys that sounded like ideas colliding, the occasional sigh as a line of code dissolved into something beautiful or stubbornly stubborn. I wanted to build worlds, not just to play in them, but to invite others to wander, to feel seen in a place where the rules could bend, and the rules could be rewritten. I wanted to craft games that whispered, "You belong here," even if this world is not a map on any family fridge. They teased me at family dinners, the way you tease someone when you want them to stop being serious. "Back to your hobby, champ," my brother would say, between bites of lasagna, the edge of his grin a shield against real talk. What is this? A video game? Is there a future in it? Or is it just a reason to miss rent? My mother would murmur something about focusing on something stable, her eyes sliding away from me, as if they were looking for an exit sign she couldn't quite locate. My sister would roll her eyes and say, "If you were ever serious about anything, you'd be a doctor or a lawyer by now." The words were meant to sting, but the sting was a map. It pointed toward the place I would become. The years stretched out like a road you think can't end, but does, only to begin again. I burned through savings in dorm room desperation, learned to read rejection letters the way you learn to read weather, with a quiet calculation of what storms might come next. I slept on a mattress that was more a memory of comfort than a thing you could claim as yours. Neon glow from the monitor lit the room in a pale blue like an ancient city at night, and I let the glow wash over me as I poured every scrap of stubborn love I had into my work. There was a moment when it all shifted, and small, almost ridiculous stake in the ground that became a banner in the wind. I released a first indie game, a tiny world with a heart that could fit into a grain of light. It wasn't perfect. The code hiccuped. The characters spoke with a shy clumsiness. And the art was a patchwork of dreams taped to a skeleton of ambition. But there was something in it. An honesty that doesn't always survive iteration. A sense that I had poured a part of myself into something that people could walk through and maybe recognize something in themselves. The reception was nowhere near blockbuster, but it was real. A streamer who never bothered with indie titles paused on it for a long stream and spoke about vulnerability in the game's quiet corners. A critic wrote about the way the world felt like a door you could push gently or kick down depending on your mood and your courage. A small studio offered advice and a chance to grow, to polish the thing into something that could stand a little taller. It was enough to keep going, box by box, rewrite by rewrite, patch by patch. Meanwhile, at home, The chorus did not soften. The mockery came with the cadence of family warmth, the kind that feels safe even as it cuts you. See, we told you, this is nothing. What are you going to do when nobody cares? Maybe you should try something that pays. The words piled up like old newspapers in a corner, a history of every doubt I had ever swallowed whole. I learned to listen and then to answer with silence, the quiet strength of someone who had learned to walk through a storm alone, because the storm wouldn't stop for a polite knock at the door. And then something happened that I hadn't anticipated, the kind of thing that happens when you stop insisting on being right and start allowing yourself to be seen. My little game found a home in a publishing offshoot I hadn't sought, a chance to grow into something bigger than my own stubborn dream. The team I joined wasn't interested in a miracle, just a path, a plan, a way to keep going. We worked, we argued, we learned to trust the process. And slowly we started to accrue momentum. It didn't just happen, it was earned the long, quiet way, through countless evenings when the apartment smelled of coffee and solder and the sound of a keyboard clicking like rain against a window. When news came of an award, an indie game festival that mattered, a little storm of a ceremony where small studios got to tell their truth, my heart did something unscripted. I wasn't seeking revenge so much as a sign that the years of saying nothing in the face of their jokes hadn't been wasted. I stood on a stage, a room of people whose faces blurred into one long chain of support and surprise. The microphone rasped in my hands, and I spoke not with bravado, but with the tremor and truth of a person who had carried a dream longer than most carry a secret. I didn't pursue this to prove you wrong, I found myself saying. And the words surprised me with their honesty. I pursued this because I needed to prove to myself that I could finish something I started when others said it wouldn't matter. The audience nodded, a soft thunder of understanding. My family, I realized, wasn't there to witness the moment the world crowned me. They were there to see what happens when the world crowns you and you decide what to do with it. Their faces, waking at the back of the room, told a story I could merely read. Every line of doubt, every fear of being unworthy, every admitted pride in seeing me stand tall in a place they once deemed unworthy. The award changed something beyond the trophy gleam. It changed language in the house. My mother, who kept a measured distance from my career, found herself asking questions she never asked before, not about numbers or status, but about process and care. My father, who used to measure every success by the ability to repair a car or to fix a paycheck, looked at the stack of press clippings and the screenshots of a game that many people had now played and asked a different question. One I hadn't heard from him since I was a child, trying to explain why the night was not a waste of time if it was spent learning. He asked how the world had changed for me, what I had learned about risk, and whether I would do it again if it meant more sleepless nights. The words were careful, almost hesitant. A man who had spent years dictating the terms of worth, now wanting to hear what it felt like to own the decision he once scorned. That moment, the quiet, careful admission, was the beginning of something I hadn't expected. A truce that didn't erase the past, but allowed it to exist beside the future. My siblings, who had teased and taunted, found themselves listening in a way that felt almost like listening to a friend rather than a target. There were no confessions of regret, not in big dramatic terms. There were small, real stops on the road we'd walked apart, and now walked toward in the same direction for a while. They asked questions I had learned to answer with discipline, about timelines, about teams, about what finally makes a game feel inevitable rather than accidental. The journey didn't turn into a neat moral. It remained messy, imperfect, beautifully flawed in the way every living thing is, A constant push-pull between fear and faith, between the loud chorus of doubt and the soft whisper of possibility. But there is a kind of revenge in that, not the kind that shatters and harms, but the kind that heals by proving that your own life can outlive a chorus of ridicule. The dream isn't the same dream I started with. It has grown into something bigger and humbler at once. Something I continue to grow because it asks for more courage than glittering success ever could. If you asked me what I would tell my younger self now, I would speak softly, perhaps not as bravely as I once did, but with a quiet groove of certainty. The world needs your strange, stubborn gift. It needs the things you are willing to fight for when the room feels cold and the hours feel long. When the family's laughter rings distant and you feel almost alone in a cathedral of glow and code. The dream isn't a rebellion against them. It is a statement of belonging to something that belongs to you, a world you built with your hands, even when the world said you should not. Now, after years of learning to stand tall with a screen behind me, I see them differently. My father's face, when he watches a trailer for our latest release on his tablet, looks less like a challenge and more like a weathered map showing a long coastline he didn't know we'd cross. My mother's smile, rare, but earned creases in the corners of her eyes, a sign she understands the long road of worry that became a road of pride. My siblings still tease sometimes, the way a family does when the old joke has become a shared memory.